there. Have you ever had a canvas that had such gorgeous shading on it that you really wanted to capture that with your thread choices? Well, my friend, let me tell you, I have got the perfect solution for you. Wondering what it is? Look no further than Needlepoint Inc Silk, one of my all-time favorite threads that has an amazing array of colors and a huge assortment of different shades within a particular color family. That's what we're going to talk about here today. So let's take a look at an example of a canvas that has some significant shading on it. This design is from Kelly Clark Needlepoint, and this little pink ornament actually has 5 different shades of pink on it. So I actually have some samples of some color families, and I want to show you just how beautifully Needlepoint Inc captures the range of colors within a particular color family. And this is not all of the colors in that family. It's just an example of, I think I've got 4 different color families that I'm going to share with you. So what do you say we hop over and take a look? So here we have a couple of different families. For starters, this one is the salmon range, and this one is the ultramarine range. So this one, you can see that I've got a representation of 5 different colors in the color range, and 5 in this one as well. So we go from a darker, almost terracotta color all the way through down to a very light peach. And in this case, the color shift from the very darkest shade to the next 2 shades is extremely subtle. And in fact, it may be a little bit hard for you to see. But then we have, this is color number 822. So they use numbers to identify their colors primarily. And so this is actually the range that is numbered, let's see, 825 to 824, 823, 822, and 821. So these are really good options for you. This one is especially good if you're stitching a canvas that has a water design element on it. And of course, this is good for anything. This color range is really good for anything where you need sort of a rusty or terracotta color. And this one, the color number is starts with the darkest 534 all the way down to 531. So that's that color family. And then we also have, let me pull over here, a couple of others that I want to share with you. And I want to show you something else too about Needlepoint Inc Silk. That's true with actually a lot of thread lines, but we'll talk about that in just a second. It has to do with these purple ones. This is the hot pink range, and you have, first of all, let's see, this is 685, and this goes all the way down to 681, but you can see it's a very nice, subtle shift of color across the spectrum. And then here we have, this is the wisteria range, and we only have 4 that I purchased as an example for us to look at. And let's see, this starts with 784, then all the way down to 781. And then I wanted a lighter color to go with this because I wanted to have 5 shades of a purple, 5 shades of purple. And there wasn't actually one that I particularly liked that was the lighter shade that would go with these 4. So I found another one, and this is in the Orchid Lights range. And I think it blends right in to give you that 5th color in that family. So, or actually, maybe it's 4 in the family and a kissing cousin off or over here to the end. So there you have some examples of of different color ranges within the Needlepoint Inc Silk thread line. Now let's take a little bit closer look at this canvas so that you can see all of the different bits of shading on here, because I know it was a little bit difficult to see when we were looking at it on the other camera. So you can see we have a darker pink, and then a little bit lighter pink, and it goes even lighter again. And down in some of these other areas, we have some very subtle shading. And then finally, these little dots are the very lightest. So when you're doing some shading, You can do a technique that's called needle blending, where you blend different colors of thread in the same needle. And this particular thread is especially effective in doing that because the colors are close enough that you don't get the tweeting that you can get when there is a much more significant difference between the colors in the range. That's one of the reasons I love this thread so much, because the gradation of color is I think it's very subtle. Or much more subtle than it is in the case of some other thread lines. So there are your purples and your pinks. And again, here are your blues. And here are your corals. So beautiful colors, over 470. Honestly, I don't remember what the number is, but I know it is over 470 different colors in the thread line. So let's talk a little bit now about the individual skeins and some of the properties of this thread. Alrighty, so let's talk just a little bit about this thread and how you use it on your projects. First of all, each individual strand that you pull out of the skein is going to have 8 strands that have been twisted together to create the one strand as it comes off the skein. So I'm going to show you how I actually treat these skeins when I'm getting ready to begin working with one. So you've got your label. You want to hold on to your label because that is really important. It has a lot of important information on it. It has your color number, and even more importantly than that, it has your dye lot number. It's super important to make sure that you buy enough thread in the same dye lot to complete your project, because sometimes the dye lots can vary enough to where it's very noticeable, and you can see the difference between one dye lot and another in the same area if you if you're not careful. So all right, so when you take the label off, you're going to be able to open this up so that you get a large loop. And one of the things that I've started doing in recent years is winding all of my thread onto wooden spools. So let me grab a wooden spool quickly and show you how I do this. All right, so you're going to want to untie the little knot that's holding the ends together. And let's see, once I get that undone, I think we'll be good to go. So what I do is I wind the thread onto an old wooden spool, old wooden sewing thread spool. And the reason I do this is twofold. One, I like to be able to have my thread in an easy, compact way to be able to pull off however much I need for whatever the application is. So if I pre-cut all of my thread and then I find that I want to use a longer piece because maybe I want to do some kind of a darning pattern on the background, if I've pre-cut my pieces, then I can put myself really unwittingly in a difficult situation, because you really can cut your pieces longer when you're doing a pattern, a stitch like a darning pattern. And you do want to be able to get all the way across the background of an area or all the way across the area without having to stop in the middle, unless you have a design component that you can bury the tails in. So I know I'm going a little bit off on a tangent there, but I do like to keep my thread intact as much as I can so that I can cut the pieces the length that I want them to be. Essentially, you're going to want to cut your pieces when you're working most of the time with this Needlepoint Ink silk. You're going to want to cut your pieces about 16 inches long, and you're going to want to use 4 to 6, I would say. It depends on your stitch tension. 4 to 6 strands on painted canvas, on 18 mesh painted canvas, and you're going to want to use 6 to 8 on 13 mesh canvas. Again, it depends on your tension. It depends on what kind of coverage you're trying to achieve. So lots of different factors there, but start with 4 on 18 mesh and start with 6 on 13 mesh, and then add or subtract however many strands you need to get the kind of coverage you're trying to achieve on your piece. All right, so let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, get this untwisted. And by the way, these skeins have 5.5 yards on them. Or is it 5 yards? Wait a minute, let me look. It's either 5 yards or 5.5 yards. So it's 5.5 yards, 5 meters. So let's get this going. So I'm just going to wrap round and round and round on the spool. And then once I've got the thread wrapped onto the spool, I will cut a piece off and put it through the label so that I know what color. Let's see, what is this? Carnation Pink Range color 945. So I know what color 945 is. And I try to cut the pieces a usable length so that if I need to have, just another piece, I can always do that. I can always use that piece that I've cut off as my sample in case I need to. I'm down to the bare end or to the very end of the skein and I need just a little bit more. I have a usable piece in my thread stash. So, all right, so we're going to do this. We're going to get all of this wound on here. And then I'll go back and cut a piece off and show you how I attach it to the label. And then I use floss away bags to keep all of my threads organized. So here we go. Now this little, there is the pink on the spool. Another reason I like to use spools for threads, for silk threads especially, is because if you have a multicolored silk thread, you want to be able to pull off, and then cut that piece, use that piece, then come on to the next section and use the next length in the flow of the original flow of color that the thread artist intended for you to use in that flow of color. So essentially what you're doing is you're maintaining the flow, the original flow of the color, instead of cutting your pieces all ahead of time. If you cut your pieces all ahead of time, then you have to worry about matching up and, oh wait, what piece is going to come next in the sequence. So if you do this, then you don't have that problem. All right, so let's cut off a piece that is approximately 16 inches long. And so now I've done that. I've got my piece that's approximately 16 inches long. I'm going to put end to end. And because this label is kind of long, I'm actually only going to fold it over once. I thought I might be able to get it folded over twice, but no such thing. You may end up also finding that it's easier for you to put this in a needle to get it to go through the label. There we go. So once I've got it on the label, then I'll come back and tie it just like that. You can do it in a very loose overhand knot so it doesn't, you don't want to tie it real tight because it's not going to go anywhere. And then I'll take a floss away bag, and then I know now that carnation pink is that color of pink, so that if this gets separated from this, it's a lot easier to match it up. All righty, so pop that little fella in there along with the label, and you can also label the floss away bags. So that's another way to keep up with your thread. And now, before I go, I want to invite you to visit the Serendipity Needleworks website, serendipityneedleworks.com. I'll make sure that I include the link to the blog post article all about Needlepoint Inc silk. There are stitched examples of the thread so you can see what it looks like stitched in tent stitch, in some decorative stitches, and on different sizes of canvas mesh. And there's also some more information over there that you're definitely going to want to check out, as well as some other pictures of some other color families. So thank you ever so much for being here today, for watching. It's been a joy to spend some time with you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, happy stitching. Bye for now.